everyone. Welcome to First Things First. It is a lovely Monday morning here in New York City. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright, and I think we were all blessed with some fun Tiger Woods action on Sunday. In order to ensure that I got to watch it, I was like, what could I do to distract the kids? We are an anti-pet family. We went out and bought them fish.
Whoa!
We got 2 fish. I got suckered into a tank. I wanted a $10 bowl. I got stuck with a $100.
To the Jenna Wolfe family.
We got big.
How about that?
So they spent an hour doing that while I got a chance to watch.
This was a great sports weekend, man. There was great NBA. There was great college basketball. The tournament bracket set. What up, CC?
I'm not into pets. You guys bring some fish to my house. I got some cornmeal. We're going to fry them.
Sounds good. These fish probably a little small.
This will not keep
you.
Listen, we were anti-pet until we had to watch TV. All right, let's start the show. Let's face it, as great as the Valspar Championship is, people weren't exactly changing their weekend plans to stay home and watch it. That is until Tiger made the cut and then made a run and then was in contention right up until the final putt. Coming into the final day with the lead, Tiger finished tied for second, 1 stroke behind the winner, Paul Casey. This was the first time Tiger had finished top 2 since 2013. Go ahead and add your best 2013 joke here. Here's Tiger Woods afterwards.
Yeah, I felt very comfortable. Very comfortable. As I told you guys yesterday, I've been here before a few times, and so it felt very comfortable. And my game was quite solid this entire week. As a whole, I felt very, very good about what I did this week.
So I actually believe it. He actually sounded comfortable just talking about his weekend, which usually he's very focused and very sort of serious and to the point. CC, what do you think? Does this weekend prove that Tiger Woods is officially back?
It proves that with his back, and I think that people need to know a number of things, but the number one thing is we've never seen a PGA Tour player play with the lower fused back. We've seen him play with a fused back, an upper back, but never with a lower back. So is he back? Man, he is able to practice. He's played 3 out of the last 4 weeks. He's going to be playing this week at Bay Hill. So for me, if he's able to practice and be healthy, yes, he's going to be back. So now how does he follow that up? He said yesterday he's not going to pick up a club today, which rightfully so. But Tiger, if he's able to keep practicing, if he's able to keep playing on the weekend, yes, we will see Tiger Woods back in the winning circle. Nick and I talked about it on Friday. Nick thought that he would win this weekend. I thought it would be very tough because of the field, and I knew that the golf course was going to be playing tough. If you saw yesterday, Paul Casey won with a 10 under par. That is a low score for a PGA golf tournament that is not a major. So it lets them know that the course was set up very difficult, and it was a star-studded field. So is Tiger Woods back? Yes, he is back, but there are some things that he's going to, if he's going to get into winner's circle and dominate again, watch the par 5s. There's a reason why Tiger didn't win yesterday. It wasn't his putting. It was the par 5s, and he played so conservative that he didn't hit his irons close enough to the pin, so he couldn't get great birdie opportunities. But Tiger Woods, typically in his prime, when he started a golf tournament or he started a round of golf, par typically 72, meaning there's 4 par 5s. Tiger would start the tournament at 4 under on the par 5. So if it was in one day, 4 under on the par 5s. In a tournament, 16 under. In this tournament, he was only 5 under on the par 5s in 4 days when there's 16 opportunities to get birdies. So to get back into the winner's circle in the dominant, we have to see him back on the par 5s. Casey was 8 under on the par 5s, 3 under yesterday. So you talk about what's the difference between Tiger, who he used to be, and where he was now. But yes, Jenna, he is back.
And Paul Casey, you really don't know that much about golf. If you did, you'd have so much more to say.
And Paul Casey, I mean, he said it. I mean, yesterday was the best putting round of his life on the PGA Tour. He said, listen, for me, it's always been about making those 6 to 8 footers, and he made all of them yesterday. But the story is Tiger, and I want to expand on a bunch of things Cris said. One is the back surgery, because they mentioned it during the broadcast, and I think it is worth expanding on. A lot of people are wondering, had been wondering, well, if the back fusion, if now he's back to being healthy, why did he have the 3 surgeries prior? It's because, as Cris mentioned, and it cannot be overstated, no one had ever had that procedure and gone on to be successful on the PGA Tour.
They were trying to avoid that.
Exactly. It was a last case.
This was not to save his golf career. This was to save his adult life.
Right. Be able to play with his kids. Like, this was something that also, that's fusion surgery, if it doesn't take well, it is disastrous. So that's why they were trying to do everything but that. But on the round yesterday, because you're right, the moment he took the lead on Friday, I said, Tiger's going to win. I'm excited. And when he birdies the first hole yesterday, I'm like, this is perfect. He's tied for the lead, 17 holes to play. He couldn't take advantage of the par fives all weekend, or all week, I should say. But the difference between yesterday and Friday, or even yesterday and Saturday, was Saturday he was so locked in with his irons that while his greens in regulation were identical from Saturday and Sunday, the difference was in Saturday he was 8 feet instead of 14 feet. He was consistently leaving himself very difficult birdie putts. With that said, CC, when he hit the 44-footer on 17, he had to go birdie to have a chance to win this tournament, to force a playoff. When he hits the birdie from 44 feet on 17, man, I thought he was going to birdie 18. Now, 18, he didn't get it close enough once again. The iron play wasn't quite as sharp as it had been earlier in the week, but I thought he was going to get the back-to-back birdies when I thought he did the toughest part of it, which was the insane 44.
And the announcers even said, could Tiger pull a rabbit out of his hat? That's how unlikely it was that he was going to be able to do that on 17 and that on 18. But let me ask you a follow-up question. How much of what we saw yesterday, especially on 18, was him being conservative and maybe not going 100%, you know, and really nailing it? Or is that just sort of where he is in his game right now, where the ball ended up?
I don't think it was a health thing. He said that he couldn't be, or after the round, he said, I couldn't be as aggressive with my irons today as I would have liked to because I didn't trust them. Basically, he didn't want to lose the golf tournament early on with a bad shot that goes errant all of a sudden. I mean, you saw it. He had a bogey on 5 and not another bogey the rest of the round. In fact, he had, what, 2 bogeys the entirety of the weekend? 1 bogey Saturday, 1 bogey Sunday. And so he had been after Monday, where he was wild. Monday he had 5 birdies, 4 bogeys. The whole rest of the weekend, the whole rest of the tournament, he only had 3 bogeys. He was conservative with his irons, but I don't think that was a health issue. I think that was
not a strength. It wasn't.
No.
Right.
I just think he didn't feel that he had that shot on Sunday.
Well, on Sunday, when he makes the long birdie putt to get within 1 shot.
Yeah.
The old Tiger Woods would have pulled out a driver and hit driver or 3-wood down there closer. His approach shot on 18 yesterday, tried to tie him up, was the longest approach shot any of the other competitors had on that hole. So, yes, Jenna, it wasn't health, it was confidence. He did not have the confidence to be able to pull out the big stick and be able to hit it on that last hole. He wanted to give himself a chance, but when you are hitting an iron into those greens from that distance, it's going to be hard to stop the ball closer to the hole. So that's the reason why the approach shot was so far away from the hole, was lack of confidence in his driver or 3-wood, and he hit an iron off the last tee.
But the guy who won it, Paul Casey, he said something. He's had a couple interesting quotes this weekend. One, he said, of course I want to win it, but if I don't win it, I hope Tiger does. And then after the tournament, he said, man, he's like, I hope these young guys get to see what we got to see. Because Paul Casey's Tiger's generation. So he's talking about the guys, basically Dustin Johnson and younger. This new era of golfers, Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, who have not experienced the Tiger phenomenon, have not experienced this type of crowd. Let's be honest. The Valspar Championship is it's not a major, it's not a semi-major, it's not a significant tournament in any way. It's significant because Tiger was in contention, Tiger was in the second-to-last pairing on Sunday.
What do you guys think? What would this do for the sport? I mean, you know where the sport was the last couple of years with Tiger out of it. What would this do for the sport for him to come and win one of these championships?
Very few times in Tiger's career. Now, Tiger did change the game as far as the optics, everything that was watching golf. But very few times during his career were people cheering for Tiger Woods. They were cheering against him. He always wasn't the favorite. He always hadn't been a crowd favorite. But you can see in his comeback, we as Americans, we love a great story and we love a comeback. And that's where the fans are. Watch television. Watch the ratings. Watch the ticket sales. Watch what comes back from the TV. Tiger Woods in contention. Watch what the ratings are. But ultimately, I believe, too, it helps the sport. Tiger Woods is like no one we've seen in golf. We didn't see Arnold Palmer. We didn't see Jack Nicklaus. Tiger Woods is what we've seen as far as television and golf. And when Tiger is there, he turns the meter like no one else.
Sunday's ratings aren't out yet. Saturday was up 170%. 170% year over year in a television climate where everything is trending downwards because of the internet, because of cord cutting.
Of course.
The third round on Saturday was up 170%. As your guy, Golf Tracker, or Golf Channel Tiger Tracker on Twitter says, Tiger doesn't move the needle. Tiger is the needle when it comes to golf ratings. And that's, I mean, there's no other scenario we would be leading the show on Tournament Monday with Tiger Woods.
And besides whatever the golf ratings are on television, watch the crowd.
Yeah, you can see it with the gallery.
Watch the color of the people in the crowd.
Yeah.
And then also watch the ages. When Tiger's there, there's more minorities in attendance at golf tournaments. And also, there are more kids going out to see Tiger Woods potentially for the first time.
You could see in the gallery at 17, it looked like some college athletes from the local school. They were wearing their gear. Like, I don't think they come out if it's just Paul Casey and Jordan Reed.
And the guy who was leading for 3 days, he got a Tiger effect yesterday. He teed off.
Oh, yeah. Casey
right after Tiger. Oh,
yeah.
What did he shoot, 77?
I think he was 5 over. Yeah,
That's the Tiger effect that we've seen on a bunch of people.
And the Masters is right around the corner. So
Yep.
if he can start building on this momentum, we'll really be in for a
do
treat.
it.
Coming up,
Let's do it, Tiger.
it is tournament week. We break it all down. We're filling out brackets. It's next on First Things First. All right, new topic here. If Selection Sunday is actually the most wonderful time of the year, and if your bracket is your Bible, and if the mid-major is suddenly an interesting topic, it is tournament time. ACC champ Virginia is the #1 overall seed, followed by Big East champ Villanova, the Big 12 champ Kansas, and Xavier as the 3 other 1 seeds in the tournament. All right, a lot to get to here. I'll start with you, Nick Wright. What are you most excited about in the NCAA tournament this weekend?
For the first time in 3 years, the best player in college basketball is going to be in the NCAA tournament. Markelle Fultz last year is going to be the #1 pick. Team can't make the tournament. Ben Simmons 2 years ago, going to be the #1 pick. LSU can't sniff the tournament. We're going to get to see not just DeAndre Ayton, but Marvin Bagley, but Trae Young, see if he can rekindle some of the magic from a couple months ago. Michael Porter Jr. is a name, a guy who was the #1 recruit in this class, has only played 1 game all year for Missouri after injuring his back right before the season, or has only played 1 game in the last few months. Like, you're going to get to see the top end of the lottery on mostly teams that absolutely could make the Final Four. And we just haven't. I want to see if DeAndre Ayton can do what we saw Carmelo Anthony do 15 years ago. What I thought Kevin Durant was going to do for Texas when he was there his 1 year with Rick Barnes. I'm one and done. I'm the best player in the country. Watch me work. We don't know if Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz could have done that because their teams weren't even good enough to get to the NCAA tournament. So the star young players that I expect to be in this loaded lottery, that's what I'm excited to see, how far they can carry their teams in what hasn't been an overwhelming season of college basketball.
I'm more excited about the teams that we haven't watched because there hasn't been a tournament since I can remember that was more wide open. That means as far as the Blue Bloods, really are they the dominant teams? The rest of the pack, the mid-majors, and the teams in these big conferences are as close to the teams at the top as any other year that I've seen. So Nick mentioned the players that are going to be in the NBA draft. In the NCAA tournament, it's about a couple of things. It's about guard play. It's about coaching, and it's about veteran ball players, not these young players. If we've seen the tournament, experience really matters. I believe this is a tournament that will be wide open. This is a bracket buster, because we can't predict which teams are going to. So we always talk about the 5 and the 12. We always talk about where the upsets are going to be. I believe in this year's tournament, it's even harder to predict. And ultimately, at the end, I'm looking to see some guys who don't have a household name. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, they will become part of the mainstream media and part of the story.
And one of the reasons that this tournament feels wide open is the team that's been the best team start to finish in college basketball this year. A team that has the best record, played in one of, if not the toughest conference, won that conference, won the conference tournament, has the veteran players, has the pedigree, has the coach, is a team no one believes in Virginia. Like, we've seen UVA in the last 4 years have these great seasons, only make it past the Sweet 16 once, have 2 second-round exits. So even though UVA is 31-2, even though they won the ACC regular season and tournament, people are like, yeah, do I really trust Virginia? And it doesn't help that UVA plays the slowest pace of any of the 68 teams in the tournament. It also probably doesn't help their marketing that their calling card is defense. They have the #1 defense in all of college basketball. So they play a plodding, physical, beat-you-up style of play. That is not what people consider exciting basketball necessarily.
If you want to look to who they remind you of, they remind you a lot of Wisconsin. I think with a little bit better personnel, but the same style that we've seen Wisconsin be successful in the tournament with the last several years.
Would you guys rather see, there's not 1 or 2 or 3 really big standout teams, powerhouse teams coming in. What would be better for the tournament, to have 1 or 2 like that you know are going to go far, or to have 8 or 9 of these pretty good teams that you know you're going to get something in the first, second, and third rounds?
I think the more teams you can have, the better off the tournament should be. We're in a strange place with college basketball. You know, we're at a kind of a crossroads. Like, the NBA influence on the game has been, to me, traumatic, not dramatic. It's been traumatic. It's hurt the college game. So in watching these teams, as far as continuity, as far as the teams that even have the blue chip recruits, they're not as good as some of these mid-majors. Right. So that's where the tournament and the magic of the tournament, that's why they call it March Madness. So that should create a lot of excitement in the next several weeks.
And as far as it being wide open, I think there's a lot of people that prefer as a whole the group of 2 seeds or even the group of 3 seeds over the teams that are 1 seeds. Like, I think most people believe in Villanova. They have a good mixture of veterans and freshmen. They obviously have a great coach, and they've got a couple players that have won a national championship for them.
Yeah.
I already mentioned the question about Virginia, but when it comes to Xavier, a team we saw up close and personal on Friday that blew a 17-point lead against a decent but not great Providence team, and then Kansas, a Kansas team that's supposed to be one of Bill Self's, theoretically, one of his worst teams in the last 5 years. They have an injury to their big man right now. You look at those teams as 1 seeds, and you're like, man, Duke, Carolina, and Purdue as 2 seeds seem just as good as those teams. And Michigan and Michigan State seem like really dangerous 3 seeds. So I remember a few years ago, I think it was the year President Obama filled out his first bracket, and he picked all #1 seeds and got a lot of flack for it, and then it was all #1 seeds when Carolina was loaded. Kentucky was loaded. I think it was the Anthony Davis year. That's not this year's tournament. This year's tournament is not one where it's like a chalk bracket, as Cece was alluding to, is the way to go. At least it doesn't feel that way to me. But I haven't won a bracket in 16 years, so I don't know.
But before that, you did?
Time. Yeah, I won one once, 16 years ago.
So that Midwest bracket is going to be real tough with all those schools in it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Duke, listen, Kansas got no favors.
No.
But, I mean, they shouldn't have gotten any favors. But Duke and Michigan State as your 2-3 seed is brutal.
All right, we take a break. Coming up, is it time for the Cavaliers to push the panic button? Hold your ears, Nick. After 2 losses in L.A. this weekend, that's next on First Things First.
No more parties in L.A., Cleveland.
All right, finally, the Warriors fell to the T-Wolves 109-103 Sunday. It was their second game and second loss in a row without Steph Curry. Coach Steve Kerr admitted, quote, "We're in the middle of a tough stretch right now." All right, Nick, it's only been 2 games, but can the Warriors still get the 1 seed at this point?
Well, so this is critical because they now have 2 more losses than Houston. Like, as far as tell me why you're laughing, CC.
Because we went to the Raptors. Are they the best team? No, they're not the best team. But Golden State with Steph Curry, this is critical where they are right now. It's just interesting.
Well, the question was, hold on. The question was, can they get the 1 seed?
Yeah,
and so
I know. I heard the question.
Okay, so well, I'm trying to explain the critical part of it is, if you have 2 more losses than Houston, and Houston has the tiebreaker, you need Houston to fall if you go undefeated the rest of the way, you need Houston to lose at least 3 more times. They are effectively 3 games back of Houston. So their ability to get the 1 seed. Now, whether or not the 1 seed is critical is up for debate.
Or any seed.
Correct. Whether or not any seed. That's up for debate. But this loss, they're back-to-back losses. Portland on Friday, and then Minnesota on on Sunday, after Houston snapped their own winning streaks. Houston lost to Toronto Friday night. This was an opportunity for them. They weren't able to take advantage of it. And I know they don't have Steph Curry, but it should be noted, Minnesota doesn't have their best player either, Jimmy Butler, or you could argue their best or second best player, just like you can with the Warriors with Steph and KD. Like, it is hard for me to see them getting the 1 seed. What do we think the Rockets are going to do the rest of the way? Like, how many more losses do we think the Rockets have? Whether or not they need the 1 seed, we can argue about that. But 2 losses and not having the tiebreaker is a big difference for Golden State.
I believe being the 1 seed is important for all teams. Of the seeding in the tournament, in the NBA playoffs, what's the least important, the Golden State third seeding, because they have the most talent. So with Steph not being able to be healthy in this stretch run, did we think they were going to make ground up on Houston? Now, this was a bad weekend for them, but there's a lot of teams have a bad weekend. If you played Portland and you backed up with Minnesota, all the teams in the NBA, probably except Houston, could jeopardize losing both of those games. So tough matchups for them in both of those games. Yes, I do believe that Golden State is still the favorite in the West, regardless if they are the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed.
Is it just a coincidence that they lost 2 games without Steph?
No.
Or does this team go as Steph goes, and does that mean he is actually the most important person, the last peg on this team?
I mean, I've been pretty consistent on this point. This team this year, without KD but with Steph Curry, is 7-0. This team this year, without Steph Curry, is 11-6. Like, Durant was great Friday and Sunday. And they lost both those basketball games. Against Portland, they played poorly early on. They then have a huge third quarter, take the lead with a couple minutes left in the third quarter, and then Portland spreads them out and wins by, 15, 16 points? Like, this team, for all the talent that it has, when Steph isn't out there, feels like just a regular, good basketball team that, like you're saying, you play Portland, you play Minnesota, those teams can beat you.
Yes.
And so
I think the result would have been the same. If KD was out and Steph was playing, they would have lost in Portland and still lost to Minnesota. Like, KD is still, he's doing his part, but when you put together this team, they are not a team that can sustain an injury to their top players. They don't have the bench, and they don't have the scoring. So if you take away 1 or 2 of their top scorers, I believe the results would be exactly the same on this road trip, being to Portland and Minnesota.
All right, speaking of a team that had some injuries last night, if LeBron James is really considering a move to Los Angeles next season, this weekend was not his best appetizer. Despite a good game from him last night, 24 points, 10 boards, 7 assists, an injury-depleted Cavs team lost to Los Angeles. Cavs lost to the Clippers Friday as well. They've now fallen back to the 4th seed in the East. LeBron spoke after the game.
No, you listen, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to want the most out of whoever you got on the floor. And, you want to get the most from whoever's playing, but, sometimes you just can't overcome, this many injuries that we have. I mean, we have pretty much 5 guys out of our top 9 or top 10 out of the rotation or not playing because of injury. So, and it's next man up, but sometimes you just fall short.
Is it at all easier to accept these losses knowing this is not your team a month from now?
No. Accept losses? No.
This is not the team we're going to see in a month from now.
Yeah, but I'll never accept a loss. It's not in my DNA.
Look, however you want to spin it, time's running out for the Cavs to get it right and to put together a nice stretch here. What is it, like 16 games left? Do you see something wrong with the Cavs, Chris?
I've been seeing something wrong with the Cavs. We talked about last week that OKC being the most disappointing team, I would put the Cavs in the same breath. Even with the injuries they have, you don't expect them to play the Clippers after a very good win against Denver and Los Angeles in a weekend in Los Angeles and lose both of those games. With the personnel they have, they are good enough to win these games. And on paper, it looked like these games were close, but Cleveland was never in control of either one of these games. The Lakers, they're not even a playoff team. The Clippers, the way they played against them on Friday night, yes, I would be concerned. It's more than just the injuries. I'm concerned about the backcourt. How much can they score? Because when you don't have Kevin Love and you only have LeBron, all right, how many points are they going to contribute? George Hill, he looked like he slowed down since the trade, so I'm concerned about him. I know no one else is concerned about J.R. Smith. I'm concerned about J.R. Smith.
Who's not concerned about J.R.? You said no one else is concerned. Who's not concerned?
I don't know who else is concerned about.
Oh, I thought you said I know no one else is concerned about J.R.
Just listen up.
Okay.
I don't know who else is concerned about J.R. Smith. I'm concerned about J.R. Last year J.R. had a lot of personal issues. Premature birth of his child last season. In 2017-18 season, J.R. has not been himself. I was surprised they didn't trade J.R. So we thought that he would have second life after the trade deadline. No hope for that. So I'm concerned about their backcourt more so than I am about the injury.
The backcourt, the Cavs have had the least productive backcourt, no matter who they've put out there, statistically, of any team, forget that's a playoff team, of any team that's not one of the 5 worst teams in the league. The Cavs had the least production from their starting backcourt. That's whether it was Calderon starting or Isaiah Thomas or Derrick Rose or whomever, George Hill at point guard, and then JR's been their starting 2 guard, except for the very beginning of the season with Dwayne Wade all year long. The backcourt obviously has to get better for them to have any chance at winning a championship. The defense had the most disappointing thing about yesterday was you knew that with Tristan Thompson injured, that Julius Randle and Brook Lopez theoretically could have big games. Because Larry Nance, while I think he's a good defender against a team like Houston, against a team like Golden State, even against a team like Boston that doesn't have a dominant big person, he's undersized. So if you play a team like Detroit that has Andre Drummond, or if you play a team like Los Angeles that has 2 good, skilled offensive big guys, that's a game where you could have used Tristan Thompson. But they knew that going in. So if you know you're going to be at a deficit defensively in the paint going in, you've got to be better on the perimeter. You've got to be better on your switches. You've got to give more attention to detail. And I know the Cavs were injured. And listen, John Holland played 19 minutes. He won't play a single playoff minute. Ante Zizic played 20. He won't play a single playoff minute. Calderon played 21. He won't play playoff minutes. But the Lakers didn't have their second best guy or their best guy, depending on what you think of Brandon Ingram. Like, the injuries can't be the reason they lost to the Lakers. When the Lakers are missing one of their best players, it wasn't on a back-to-back, when I don't want to say you gave away the game against the Clippers, but as Cece mentioned, the Clippers were in control the entire time. Like LeBron said it, you should be able to, especially when LeBron plays well. He wasn't great, but he played fine. When LeBron gives you 24, 10, and 7, you shouldn't lose to the Lakers in a game that is decided with 7 minutes left in the fourth and you're benching your starters. Like, that shouldn't happen. My
issue is when you look at Houston, there's not one particular part of the game that you said, this has to get better if they're going to make a title run. Or the Warriors, this has to get better. But when you say, like, the backcourt has to get better or their defense has to get better, it concerns me because we are running out of time and you're adding Kevin Love to the mix again. So I don't know when all this is going to happen, that these things are just going to suddenly get better and then Kevin Love is going to fit into a rotation seamlessly.
No, they will get better when they get back those players. But we act as if Tristan Thompson was making all NBA before he got injured. He was playing awful. LeBron and Jeff Green were awful on defense. So we talk about their backcourt being bad, offensively, defensively. Their front court, not only their center, their forwards. LeBron and Jeff Green, I mean, Randall scoring
36. He had the best game of his life.
I mean, they got all kinds of problems that I don't believe they have enough to be able to get them to the finals. So for me, I've been concerned about Cleveland for a long time, and that just continues as we get into the middle of March.
So hold on, when you then that was interesting there. You said enough to get to the finals. That's your level of concern right now? That they could not make the finals?
That. Yes, absolutely. The NBA finals.
No,
that's
no,
my
of course.
goal.
No. I understand.
Yes.
But I know that even when the Cavs have been playing better, you've been concerned enough that you said even if they make the finals, I don't think they can win it. Right now, though, you're concerned about whether they would even get there.
Absolutely.
Whether they'd even get.
What have they done that would say, oh yeah, they can still beat Toronto? Like. Nothing to me.
No, it's just, and again.
And then the only thing we're relying on is, Toronto hadn't been as good the last 3 playoffs. That's the only thing that we're relying on.
No, we're also relying on what we've seen the last 10 years in the playoffs from LeBron in the East. Like, you guys keep asking me what'll take it for me to shake my faith. And all year long, I haven't picked them to win the title, but all year long, I picked them to go to the finals. And I just need to see it. I need to see there to be a series in the East. Because even the...
this is Cleveland, regardless of how bad they play, you won't be concerned until someone else does something.
I won't be concerned with Cleveland's ability to make the NBA Finals until the other team has 3 wins, they're down 10 points with a minute left. Like, I just won't be.
Don't you think Cleveland gets swept in the finals?
What? Playing the way they played last night? Absolutely.
All right, well, let's just take the first 60 games.
Take the first. Well, we haven't seen Kevin Love with the new pieces. We haven't seen Kevin Love with the new pieces and the month of the playoffs they're going to have. Like right now, they would be a heavy underdog to Golden State or to Houston. If Kevin Love were to not come back, yeah, I do think they'd get swept in the finals by either team that makes it, whether it's Golden State or Houston. But am I certain of how that's going to play out once the Cavs have had their month and a half of the playoffs and once we see what Houston and Golden State does to each other in the conference finals? I'm not. But CeCe mentioned one thing I want to touch on. about Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson had been playing terribly. Tristan Thompson had not been as good as Larry Nance. There are still certain matchups where you like a guy. And what you would have liked last night when Brook Lopez was abusing Larry Nance, you would have liked to be able to plug in Tristan Thompson. Now, I don't know what that would have done for Julius Randle, because you're right, LeBron and Jeff Green, whomever
LeBron got plenty of Randle. He guarded Randle plenty.
And Randle had, I said it, the best game of his NBA career. This is the type of game people thought he could maybe have when they took him in the top 5 a few years ago. Like, Randle looked extraordinary. Randle, they were talking during the broadcast about Julius Randle. He would be one of the cap casualties if they wanted to bring in LeBron, if that's even makes sense for them. He was great. This is not the Cavs team we will see when the games matter more than they mattered last night.
It's to LeBron's benefit for them not to make the finals, because they're going to get embarrassed if they make the finals.
All right, we're going to talk a lot more about this. Speaking of LeBron, we'll also talk about whether we think LeBron would fit in with this Lakers team now that we got a chance to watch it, if that's something that might happen next year.
Can't beat them, join them.
But coming up, what does Richard Sherman do for the 49ers Super Bowl hopes? We'll break that down next on First Things First. It has been quite a week for Richard Sherman. Cut by the Seahawks on Friday, stressed out about it on Saturday, signed by the 49ers 36 hours later. Sherman signed a 3-year deal with San Francisco in a contract that could be worth over $39 million. Not too much of a guarantee, though. Tons of incentives, so plenty of opportunities to get back at the team that let him go. CC, are the 49ers a good fit for Richard Sherman?
If he's healthy. There's no veteran player when you're injured is a good fit anywhere.
What about that team particularly? Because if he's healthy, he could probably fit in anywhere.
This is the thing. When you're a veteran player, where is he most valuable? He's most valuable in the NFC because he spent all of his time in the NFC. He's also a guy that spent his whole life, for the most part, on the West Coast. So for me, how do I get him staying in the NFC and keep him on the West Coast? If you are Arizona, if you're the Rams, if you're Seattle, you don't want to see Richard Sherman again twice a year. He knows all the wide receivers in the division. So is he a good fit for San Francisco? Not just because of their team and their scheme, but because he knows the division. Yeah. He has dominated this division. He's dominated the wide receivers in this division. Also, they face the AFC West. So he knows the teams in that division. So I think he'll be very, very comfortable. He still has to make some huge strides as far as getting back on the field. He tore his right Achilles during the season, had a procedure done on his left Achilles. Now, Achilles, they do get healthier. Like, they will get back where he's 100%. But can he play football or cornerback with a ruptured Achilles? That's going to be the question mark. So Richard Sherman, it's a good fit for now. The price that they're paying for him is a good price. It is basically a 1-year, prove-it-to-me deal, and I believe that's a good deal for a team that's a young team, that they're definitely a team that is generating a lot of interest. And Richard Sherman is a key part mentally to a young team trying to get into the playoff hunt, because San Francisco, they don't have a lot of guys on their roster that are used to being in the playoff hunt.
And keep in mind, Richard Sherman was operating without an agent, so he was representing himself here. And what he ended up is a deal that, if you reach all the incentives, he makes more money than he would have made in Seattle last year. But it's also a deal that could end up being worth less than $5 million. They reported it as $5 million signing bonus. It's really a $3 million signing bonus. He gets another $2 million if he passes his opening day physical. But that's no guarantee. Like, he could play 14 games this year and not pass that opening day physical because of the ruptured Achilles. So there was one note, though, that your pal Peter King pointed out, CC, that I thought was interesting, which is he gave Seattle basically the right of first refusal. That when they had come to an agreement, or not come to an agreement, but when he got the offer, he calls up Seattle and sees if they want to match the offer. Does that tell you anything about where he wanted to really be? About what or was that, because you wouldn't think it was out of loyalty because Seattle just cut him. The fact that he went out and got this offer, and before he agreed to it, he calls Seattle and see if they want to sign. Does that mean anything to you?
Well, for one, before Seattle was going to release him, they would offer him a pay cut. So trying to go back to the team after you sign, it's too late. And because of the salary cap, the team is taking a hit once they cut you. Why would they be interested in signing you back unless it was at a drastically reduced price? So, no, I'm not surprised. He's worth more in Seattle because they know him. But no, I'm not surprised. I told you last year, when him and the coach were going at it, this would not be the last of them. He would not win that battle. I thought last year would be his last year in Seattle, and I believe Richard talked his way out of Seattle.
And as far as if we're trying to check off the boxes CC mentioned, which is stay in the NFC, stay on the West Coast, like you're running, San Francisco is the perfect fit because it's the only plausible option that checks both boxes. You would say, oh, what about the Rams? Well, the Rams just signed, they got 2 new corners, right? They got to keep Talib and Marcus Peters. So there's not really a need for Richard Sherman there. Oakland's on the West Coast. Obviously, they're not in the NFC. Like, there's just he gets to stay in his division, stay where he's comfortable.
Yeah.
And also San Francisco with the Talib thing. San Francisco went after Talib in a trade. He turned down a trade to San Francisco, and I believe right now he's a better player than Richard Sherman is.
What do you think the 49ers saw in Richard Sherman that Seattle didn't?
Oh, it's the money. I mean, I shouldn't just say it's just the money, but I think Seattle had, if Richard Sherman were, if his contract had run out, right, and he was just a total free agent, there was no dead money associated with cutting him, this is the type of deal Seattle would have at least considered. Now, maybe they want a new culture in there. Maybe because, as you mentioned about the young players, they don't want some of the veteran voices when they're trying to get kind of a new wave of talent. But the biggest difference between Richard Sherman in Seattle and Richard Sherman in San Francisco is the type of contract he was under. If he would have been on the roster day one of next year, it's $11 million you're going to end up paying him for next season. And so that's the biggest difference, at least in my eyes, is the type of contract
The biggest difference is you don't have a screenshot of him and Kyle Shanahan fighting on the sideline. All those great memories we had with Seattle, that tremendous run that they went on, we won't be showing those clips. What will we see? We'll see Richard Sherman the last 2 years, him arguing with the offensive coordinator, him with sound bites about the coach, about we should have done this, we should have done that. That right there got him out of Seattle.
Welcome back to First Things First. We convinced former NBA champ Steven Jackson to come visit us from L.A.
Glad to be here.
How's it going?
Glad to be here.
We invited you back at the Super Bowl when we were hanging out a year and a half ago. Nice to finally have you here, man.
Yeah, one of the few I'm talking about a real tough guy that played in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of them studio gangsters, they not real tough. My man Jack.
You know I know that.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations on the show, too.
Oh,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We're having a lot of fun. All right, let's talk about the Golden State Warriors. They lost yesterday to the Timberwolves, their second straight loss since Steph went down with an ankle injury. Coincidence, or do they go as Steph goes? With 16 losses on the season, it's already the most the Warriors have lost under head coach Steve Kerr. Coach Steve Kerr admitted we're in the middle of a tough stretch right now. Stephen, I'll start with you. Is Steph Curry the most important member of the Golden State Warriors?
Well, I still think KD is the most important, but this team was a championship team without KD. So just like the game against Minnesota, when KD, you have to take 32 to 36 shots to get 39 points. I don't care how great you are, this team can win without you taking that many shots. They were a championship team without you taking that many shots. So I think if KD was out and Steph was in, this team could still win because they're used to winning without KD. They won a championship without KD. With KD in this role without Steph, it's different for him because he don't know that he has other guys that can still be dominant without Steph being on the court. I think they didn't go to Clay enough in that Minnesota game. He didn't get enough shots. And other guys, they play well together. They're a team. They play well together as a team. And when KD takes so many shots, it's kind of hard. So Steph is definitely the most important piece to that puzzle, but KD is the best player.
See, so that's you and I are in full agreement. If the Warriors stopped existing as a team and all the players were free agents, I think KD'd be the first pick for another team. I think KD's their best guy, both ends of the court, can beat you so many different ways. But I think their most important guy is Steph. And the numbers, to me, back it up dramatically. This year, without Steph, they're 11-6. Without KD, when Steph plays, they're 7-0. With KD on and off the court, they outscore teams by the exact same margin. They're actually slightly just a tick better with them off the court. With Steph on and off the court, there's a 14-point difference between how the Warriors do with him on to with him off. I think Steph unlocks things not only for the offense as a whole, but we saw Klay Thompson on Sunday. All of a sudden, Friday night and Sunday. Okay, now you're going to have to dribble a little bit. not that comfortable with that. Like, there's a lot of things that when Steph's out there, he gets so much of the attention from deep. Clay ends up with open jump shots. That doesn't happen as easily with Kevin Durant.
The biggest difference is, neither one of you brought this up, is how they start their offense. Because that's the biggest difference in their team. And Steph is the igniter for their offense. If you saw KD in the last 2 games, he's got to handle the ball a lot more.
Yep.
Why? Because the other guard in Clay doesn't handle the ball a lot. So the difference, it might be proven on the paper, but from a ball player standpoint, that's just because they don't start their offense now the way they started before. The drop-off offensively between the point guard, who takes his place, and if you had KD out of the lineup, it's easier to get his buckets than it is to get Steph and get the offense started. What makes Golden State so special? Their ball movement, their ability to build a pick, they're free-flowing. You don't have that when you don't have the guy who starts. So I'm just going to get away from who's the most important. All right, because you can't afford to lose either one of them. Like, I don't care what the numbers say, but when you have a guy who is setting up the offense, it's easier for the numbers to indicate because he's got the ball more. So, yes, offensively, they are not as good a team because of the lack of movement. But also, they are a better defensive team. So, what is that? Plus on defense, a minus on offense? They are just not set up. We talk about, yeah, they won a championship without KD. They had a lot better bench. They had a lot better support.
I agree.
Their biggest bench players the year they won without KD were Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston. They're still
the MVP of the finals.
Yeah, but
so he wasn't just some bench player.
Of course, but I'm saying those guys are still
and
there.
he was drastically better than he is now.
Okay, so that to me is the key point, because when you say their bench was better, I don't want people to be thinking about, well, wait, so we're talking about Festus Ezeli and Maurice Spates?
Right, no.
No, it's the same guys who were there. Yeah. Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston, are they as good as they were
right now?
You
can't put Iggy in and say get 20.
No.
You can't put him in and say slow down LeBron.
Right.
All right? He is not that guy anymore. So you're going to suffer when you take KD off OKC. You remove some of your other bench players. You put him on that team. If you lose Steph or him, you're going to suffer because these teams won't be able to adjust because of the wholesale changes they had to make in acquiring that salary of KD.
And you know what, with Golden State, a lot of times their offense is their defense. So when the offense is not running through KD, when KD has to run the offense, like you said, it messes the whole offense up. The offense has to run through KD. Steph has to run the offense. And Clay is just a guy that gets his shots through the offense, through guys making plays. So you're right, the offense is going to struggle now without having Steph out there.
Stephen, right now the Warriors are in sort of a dogfight with Houston. How important is the 1 seed to them, and will it matter? Because time's kind of running out for them.
I think the 1 seed matters more to Houston than Golden State. They've been there. They've been in the finals the last 3 years. You know, they've been at the top. They've broken records and wins. They're not really worried about that. I think this team is so together that whether they're first, second, or third, when they get in the playoffs, they know what they have to do. They've been there. They know what it takes to be champions. I think Houston needs that #1 spot because they're not too confident in the playoffs. You know, I don't think anybody that knows the game of basketball not really buying this regular season Rockets. I'm not buying it because I know how teams take James out the game in the playoffs and he just die. The question is, what is Chris Paul going to bring to this team when teams take James Harden out? Teams, they're going to double him, and they're going to make him give the ball to Capella at the three-point line. What is he going to do with it at the three-point line? Teams haven't been doing that all regular season. They're going to take him away. They're going to take him out. They're going to struggle.
So from a strategy standpoint, let's stick on the Harden. You believe that right now is probably going to be the MVP.
No question.
But you believe that there is a defensive way to negate the way he's played during the regular season, and how is that?
Yeah, it's been done the last couple of years. I mean, if you look at it, be honest, he had an MVP season the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. You know, he's been doing the same thing, and they got to the playoffs. He didn't have Chris Paul, but they doubled him in the playoffs, took him out. Nobody else was able to do anything. I think Chris Paul may be the answer, but when you double James and get it back to those big guys, they can't make plays. They tend to struggle when they do that.
So the X factor, I think, for a lot of people, the difference between the Rockets this year and last year is Chris Paul. You didn't mention that. Do you buy into this idea that Chris Paul struggles in the playoffs? I don't. I think his teams have been beaten by teams better than them. It's one of the reasons I do believe in the Rockets this year. Not to say they're definitely going to beat Golden State, but I think they have the best chance of beating Golden State of any team in the last 2 years in the Western Conference. And I think an enormous part of that is what Chris Paul brings them, and that James won't have to handle the ball for 40+ 30-plus minutes a game as he had in years past. I don't know where you stand on Chris Paul.
Well, I think that the toughness that Chris Paul has, the Rockets definitely need. Chris Paul had a hell of a team in L.A. He had a hell of a team in L.A., so it's a lot of reasons why that didn't get done. Maybe it was Blake, maybe it was the coaching, who knows, but they had everything. He had everything he needed in L.A. to beat Golden State. His toughness can get Houston over. They're playing great. I think any team going into the playoffs, you want to be on a good feel about this team. You want to be winning. Everybody wants to be healthy. That's a great way to go into the playoffs, and that's a good thing for Toronto and Houston. I think they need that to be successful.
What was concerning for me about Golden State was Friday they saw Houston lose. Houston's game finished before Golden State's even started. Golden State then starts off slow against Portland. Third quarter comes all the way back, takes the lead. That was a great moment for them to tie Houston in the standings, put the pressure back on them. They weren't able to close that out. Does that mean anything to you?
Nah, not at all. Like I said, playoffs is a whole different season. Like I said, these guys been there. You got to think. The last couple of years they've been in the finals. They've been playing a lot of basketball the last couple of years. So if they even just turn it down a little bit and to go in the playoffs with a full speed, going healthy, Golden State, they can do that because they're the only team that have that luxury.
Yeah, you watch the fourth quarter against Portland and against Minnesota. They couldn't get any stop.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what was on the TV 3 hours ago. Yeah, we saw Houston losing. But when they got to Portland, they couldn't get any stop.
Yep, couldn't get
so,
any stop.
Regardless of can we gain a game or not, at the end of the day, it's about getting the job done. And they just haven't been able to do it defensively either.
Stephen, thanks. We'll see you a little bit later in the show. Don't go anywhere. Coming up, should we just lock up Tiger to win the Masters now? That's next on First Things First.
Yeah.
Seems like everything is coming up Tiger Woods in 2018. He has made the cut in 3 tournaments, the first time he's done that since 2015. He finished second over the weekend, first time he's finished top 2 since 2013. Now he has 9-to-1 odds to win the Masters, which would be his first win there since 2005.
Wow.
CC, is there a number I didn't say out loud? Also, does Tiger have a legit shot at actually winning the Masters this year?
It's been since 05.
He has a better shot if I decide to go to the Masters. Because I've been at 3 of the Masters that he has won. I was there in 2005.
You want to go this year?
I'm pretty certain that I'm going to. I'm trying to work on some logistics.
I was trying to be subtle.
Some passes and everything. Y'all people, y'all know me. Y'all know the party. Y'all know me.
I love when the television show becomes first things first, Cris Carter, Ncaa, Wright, Jenna Wolfe, and occasionally Chris getting tickets to stuff, which I fully endorse and am to be
Friday
totally honest,
night, I'm at the Big East. I'm in the first row, right behind the announcers. Sunday, I'm with the general manager of the Knicks, watching Toronto, who was the best team in the East. Like, I'm out doing my research.
4 weekends from now at Augusta with Tiger. Where in the world is Cris Carter? I love it. Go ahead.
I bought fish.
You bought fish,
So we had the exact same weekend.
So, all right, so Cece, whether you're there or not, and you'll be there, is your thought on Tiger's chances at the Masters?
The reason why Tiger has such a great shot at the Masters, besides Jack Nicklaus, he's second greatest player to ever play on that golf course. The golf course sets up for Tiger Woods. Why? Because the fairways are huge, and there's such a premium on your short game, that's chipping, and his ability to be able to putt the ball. So with the fairways being wider open, Tiger can hit driver more, 3-wood more, so than he could in yesterday's tournament. With some of the holes, he had to hit an iron off the tee to be able to play a little more conservative. So Tiger Woods, when he's healthy, he's always one of the favorites at the Masters because there's so much information that younger players don't know about Augusta. You see Freddie Couples, year after year, make the cut, and try to make some type of run at the Masters, even into his 50s. Phil Mickelson. This is a tournament that has been dominated by the veteran players or those who have had great success on the golf course. So Tiger Woods, when he's healthy, he's always should be one of the top 5 favorites in Augusta for the next several years.
So the most important thing CC said, I believe, is the wide fairways. Just look at how the tournament ended yesterday. He had to go birdie to force a playoff yesterday. He was at 8 under going into the 71st hole. He makes a miraculous birdie putt on the 17th. So now, now it's really in play. Now you don't need to fly in an eagle. You just need a birdie on 18. Despite knowing that, he doesn't go driver or 3-wood out of the tee box. He goes with an iron. He ended up, CC mentioned the number, he had the longest approach to the fairway in 18, the most yards to go of any player up to that point all day Sunday.
Right.
Because he wanted to make sure he landed in the fairway, didn't trust his driver
This is why the
to get in the
distance
fairway.
is important. all right? Because the further you move back from 150 yards, just using that as a common number, say they're hitting a pitching wedge or a 9-iron. When you go back to 170, 180, 190, you're not hitting pitching wedge 9, you're hitting 7, 6, 5, and 4. And the lofts of those clubs, there's less loft. All right, so when the ball hits the green, the ball will roll further. So if you get closer to the hole, you can hit shorter irons, which he's made his living off of through the years.
Right, and which is why, I mean, that you hit the shorter irons, you can shape the ball better, you can control the spin better, and you can hopefully, likely, the idea is get it closer to the pin. He knew he had to get a birdie on 18. He still went with the iron off the tee because he wasn't trusting his woods. But at the Masters, to CeCe's point, with the wider fairways,
take those.
You can take more chances because you have to miss it badly on most of those to not land in the fairway. And with how good his short game has been, his chipping and his putting, I thought was extraordinary this weekend. If you add some better driver play, then all of a sudden, you can
And what
win
people don't know about Augusta, the front 9 is a lot harder. It's ranked harder than the back 9. On the back 9, there's 2 par 5s, and there are several par 4s that you can make a run. You can make a lot of birdies and 2 potential eagle opportunities on 13 and 15. They're there every year unless the wind is blowing back into their face. So those are the things, too, that make Augusta so much more advantageous for players who have played there because they know the course.
Augusta has the fanfare. It's going to have the large galleries. It's going to have tons of coverage. It doesn't need anything else to pump it up, if you will. What would Tiger Woods playing at Augusta trying to win for the first time since 2005, what would that do for a tournament that already has it all?
No, it's for the sport of golf. Forget the tournament. It puts golf back in the mainstream. There's one way for golf to be leading this television show as it did this morning on a day when the brackets come out and the Cavs are in free fall. Doesn't matter. Tiger Woods, he didn't even win it. Just had top 2 finish. Like, Tiger is he is the average golf fan. He is the common golf fan, or he is what brings those people to the table. And the other thing that I'm excited about to potentially see at the Masters is we saw it for the first time in a while, which is some of the competitors feel the effects of Tiger. You mentioned the guy leading the tournament, Casey Connors, but how about Justin Rose? Like, a couple guys who all of a sudden, man, that crowd's what's that roar about? What am I hearing here? What you're hearing is the Tiger roar, the Tiger gallery, and it affected people. One of the reasons Paul Casey was able to win is he was out so early. The Tiger effect, he was 5 holes ahead of him. The Tiger crowd and roars didn't really affect him.
And Paul Casey talked about in the clubhouse being afraid. He's 2 shots ahead of Tiger, already in the clubhouse. He's posted what ended up being the winning number. The Tiger Woods effect, it is real, but this golf course sets up for Tiger. I think when Tiger won his first one, I think Jack and a couple other legendary golfers said that Tiger would win 7, 8, or 9 green jackets. So we know how many he has now. We look for him to try to add one next month.
And it wasn't just fans or whatever. A lot of the players, instead of not just Paul Casey, were talking about what it meant to be playing and seeing Tiger Woods play with them again and how much
great for the sport. So great.
Coming up is Odell Beckham Jr.'s future with the Giants now in jeopardy.
You see the New York Daily News?
After his latest
saying
slip.
trade him.
Next on First Things First. The Cleveland Browns made a flurry of trades on Friday. They acquired former Bill quarterback Tyrod Taylor, Dolphins wide receiver Jarvis Landry in exchange for draft picks to improve their team. They still have the number 1 and 4 overall picks. All right, CeCe, will these moves by the Browns alter their draft plans in any way?
Well, they got more talented. There was no team in the NFL got better than them last week. I mean, they have tremendous cap available. They have a bunch of picks. Why not trying to get some veteran players to be able to help that roster out, which is one of the worst in the NFL? And they got that. They stabilized their quarterback by getting Taylor from Buffalo. If you look at, I think that Deshaun Kaiser threw 22 interceptions. I think since Tyron has taken over in Buffalo, he had 15 interceptions in 3 years there compared to 22. So they got better at quarterback. They have a top flight, a potential number 1 guy in Jarvis Landry. They're not at the mercy of Josh Gordon. Does he continue his rehab and have success in that? So they got a lot better, and they still got a bunch of picks and cap space available.
So the big question to me is, does this make it more likely they draft Saquon Barkley? Like at number 1.
Because of Tyrod.
still, yeah, because now you're not screwed if you don't get your quarterback. Now, I'm still of the belief that even though it's a new general manager, John Dorsey isn't the one that made the trades the previous few years, that it was Sashi Brown. And by the way, the reason the Browns have all this capital to make these trades, the cap space to do this, is because of what Sashi Brown did. Yeah,
Sashi Brown should have got himself a quarterback, then he'd still be employed gainfully by the NFL.
Well, they got all these draft picks because they traded away the pick that became Carson Wentz. Then they traded away the pick that became Deshaun Watson. So can they then pass on a quarterback at 1, hoping he's there at 4? I don't think you can do that. I know you like the idea, at least, of Saquon Barkley at 1. I think it's too much of a risk. If you have a quarterback that you like enough to take at 4, take him at 1. Do not run the risk that he's not going to be there at 4.
Even if you got Tyrod Taylor.
Even with Tyrod Taylor.
Because even if Saquon goes, you got 4 or 5 quarterbacks. You have a spot 3 spots later to take a quarterback because you know you have someone that could start on day 1.
Yeah, I don't believe there's a Carson Wentz in this draft, and I definitely don't believe there's a Deshaun Watson in this draft. I believe that the quarterbacks are bunched up. If they took Barkley with the number 1, if this is the grade they have on the quarterbacks, like I have, that they're bunched up, take Barkley, take him off the board. You're still going to get one of the quarterbacks that you like at number 4 because you have a starter in Tyrod. This is what they said. We don't believe these guys can be starters. We're going to support him by getting us a day 1 starter right now and making the trade. That's what they did. So now they have relief. There's not pressure on them as far as the quarterback that they could wait for the 4 pick to be able to get that guy.
All right, tough weekend for Odell Beckham Jr. A video surfaced of him with a French Instagram model while he holds a brown object that looks to be some sort of cigar, and next to him a line of white powder that some are inferring is an illegal substance. Both the Giants and the NFL have said they are aware of the video. Nick, what was your reaction when you saw this?
I mean, it's not good for Odell publicly, obviously, right? Like, we don't know, we can't prove when this video came from. I know some people are trying to do Zapruder-esque, looking at the tattoos to figure out the dates of it. I think these are fair assumptions to make. I think this probably happened a few weeks ago when he was in France for Fashion Week. I think that object in his hand is almost assuredly a blunt, marijuana cigarette. And I think the white powder next to him, it sure to me looks like cocaine. Like, I think those things are what most people see and they assume. Now, I also think most people are not necessarily saying he was doing cocaine. It's not what my thought was. And so people see this and say, this is a terrible look, no matter if it's the offseason or not. Now, I will be honest. This is not the type of thing that I've ever been bothered by. This is not the type of thing that I've ever reacted super negatively to. We live in an era now where everyone's got a recording device in their pocket. So because of that, you should be more careful. You should be more cautious. But am I shocked by NFL guys in the offseason maybe smoking some weed? No. Am I shocked by hooking up with, whether it's an Instagram model or whomever, who the person you're hooking up with might do some drugs? No, I'm not shocked by any of that. Do I think any of this affects his ability to help the New York Giants on the football field? No, I don't. But I know he doesn't want this. He doesn't want the back page of the New York Daily News to say, shop Odell now. He doesn't want the Giants to be able to come to him when he is asking for a new deal and talk about, well, can we trust you on this? Can we trust you on that? So I understand why the optics are bad. I don't think this stuff actually matters all that much, but I'm one of the only people that feels that way. I'm sure that the Giants feel differently. I know my partner feels differently. I know you feel differently. I'm an extremist on this stuff. I really am not bothered by this type of stuff.
Well, if you're going to be covering sports, and as long as they have drug testing in sports, it should bother you. Because this is a guy that sat there and told you, I'm trying to be the best. I'm trying to do everything right. This guy we've talked to multiple times. So you should be disturbed by it because his actions aren't backing up what he told you. So forget what everyone else is saying. What he actually told you, he's not living up to that. Now, the last time I saw cocaine in a room, I happened to be doing it. It wasn't everyone else. It wasn't me blaming it. So now if I happen to get into a room or something like that, I remove myself from the room because of what could happen to me. This is not good, all right? You being on a video as a professional athlete, I don't know what was rolled in the blunt paper. I don't know what was on the table. I'm not even going to try to validate or make excuses for either one. But there is a thing called image, and it becomes very, very important when you are trying to be the highest paid receiver in the history of the NFL, when you have gone on record to tell the New York Football Giants, I want $20 million, all these things become very important. I met with Odell at the honors with the new head coach, Sherman, from
Pat Sherman.
Pat Sherman from Minnesota. So everything that he has said does not equate to being on the front page of the Daily News. So the optics in pro sports, and also they do have drug testing in pro sport, it becomes very, very important. Now, from a marketing standpoint, this could be tragic. So for me, I'm not worried about what's going to happen in the NFL, because I do believe if he's not in the drug program, which I believe he is, this will advance him in the program. And as far as Nike, as far as Head and Shoulders, do you think they're going to pay this guy this kind of money when his offseason he ends up being with an Instagram model? I don't care if 99% of all athletes are with an Instagram model and they have cocaine and marijuana. If OBJ wants to be the greatest receiver ever, which he told me, these things will not fly. They will never fly with me. There will never be a day that I'll be cool with it. So this is not good for OBJ. It's not good for the New York Football Giants. And if the Giants didn't entertain some type of trade, then they're not looking at all the options available. Odell brought this on himself. He continues to bring these things on himself, and if you're going to be the best, he's going to have to remove some of these bad things that we have seen be involved and be around his life.
Odell Beckham Jr. had this narrative that he wanted to put together at the end of last season. He had a tough time last season. He had the incident where he lifted his leg in the end zone, and then he hurt himself, so he never really had a chance to get back on the field and prove, hey, I want to do something good here. I want to, turn my season around. I want to be the guy that warrants a $90 million contract. I want to be the guy that they'll go out and say was the best wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So work towards that. So I fall somewhere between the two of you. What you want to do in your private time, do what you need to do. I don't care.
No. You can't do what you want to do in your private time.
Listen to me. Because the only thing he said is, this is what I want. What does he want? He wants to get his contract. That's what he wants. He wants to get paid. He's talked about sitting out his OTAs and his training camp, even the preseason, all because of what? Because he wants to get his contract. Yes. So go earn your contract. Because he knows that doing this is not going to help him. So why do it if it's so important to you?
I mean, and I'm not justifying the behavior. I'm just being honest with the audience that I am not super bothered by the behavior. Chris's point
do you think it'll affect his career? Forget about you being bothered.
Do I think it would? If the video didn't come out, do I think smoking some weed in the offseason affects his career? No. I think what could affect his career is
him being on video. You don't.
No. The video coming out absolutely could.
Because we just made up something. Let's talk about what happened.
What we actually saw.
Well, fair enough. No, the point that I didn't know what you were asking. If doing that in a vacuum, if those decisions, if we don't find out about them, then do I think they affect his career? No, they affect his career now because we did find out about him. But to me, some of this becomes and this is what I was saying, Jenna, before the show, some of it becomes a little bit circular. Why is it bad for Odell? Because we're going to talk about it. Why are we going to talk about it? Because it's bad for him. I get everyone's point that if you're trying to become the highest paid player in the league, you want an untouchable offseason, which is why I would feel this is different than an arrest. I would feel this is different than getting in a fight.
Why this is important, what it shows is inconsistency in his personality. And it also shows that you can't trust him at his word.
Right.
That's what it shows.
How many more
so
chances?
His ability to make money, it affects that. His brand, it affects that. And all those things I know are very, very important to him.
Can I ask you a question? Because obviously, you and I have spent time with Odell, but you actually know him far better than I do. If Odell were to reach out to you this week, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
I'm so disappointed in him. I'm so disappointed, and I expect better from him. It's enough of the excuses. It's time for you to grow up and stop being a little boy. If you want to be a national brand, damn, act like it. If you want someone to pay you the highest paid the receiver in the history of the game, damn, act like it. All right? Because enough is enough. I'm sick of talking about him and the negative aspects. I can't talk about his releases. I can't talk about him catching the ball in traffic. Why? Because of this. And this matters. Okay? Your image in sports will always matter. And you're in sports. You're not some rapper, all right? You're in the National Football League, and you're under contract with the New York Football Giants. Act like it matters. Because they have had other Giants players along their career, it didn't matter to them, and it affected their arc as far as how great we consider them to be. All right? The greatest Giant ever struggled off the field. Until this day, he still does not have his life under control. And to see another great athlete and to see that happen to them, I will not sit here and act like, oh, this is normal. No, it's not normal. This guy is an unbelievable talent, as talented as anyone that I have ever seen. So I'm disgusted with the whole thing. OBJ, call me, man. Enough of this stupidness.
I'm Jenna Wolfe, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.